breadcrumbs, you know, and he had this whole thing talking about how when he was a kid, his family didn't have a lot of money. It was very hard for his parents to have extra stuff to send him. He felt nervous and uncomfortable at school, and that's why he got into bodybuilding, because then he could kind of create his own armor around himself. He has a really passionate and moving story, and even though I disagree with the guy on a lot of his politics, one thing he did really well when he was governor of California was he made a lot of investments in those after school programs, and it actually showed a meaningful difference, right? It showed that people were less likely to get into trouble. It showed that high school pregnancies, teenage pregnancies were going to go down, right? All these kinds of things. You had better opportunities. People felt like they had somebody who believed in them, right? That's a huge problem with young people whose parents are spread super thin. They're desperately trying to afford everything in their lives, right? They're trying to make sure that their kids have a place to sleep and eat, and it's super stressful, so they don't have a time to keep an eye on them all the time. And that leads to, people making all kinds of bad decisions. That's not their fault, because they feel like nobody's got time to look at them, pay attention to them. They get attention from people who are not good influences on them. It sounds like a fucking after school special, but a lot of it's true, guys. And if we actually had a progressive news network like TYT, they'd be talking about that. They would be talking about how we need to make sure that we raise the minimum wage in California and we start employing rent control, and that we need to make sure that gas prices go down, and that the regressive taxation that California has done as a way to combat climate change is not working. Making gas $7 a gallon just punishes poor people. It does nothing to stop petrol companies. We have to talk about all of that honestly, and we have to talk about how it's impacting people, so they hate Democrats because they see gas being $7 an hour, and they hate climate change activists because they think they want to make it $12 a gallon. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Do we have any more of the meltdown? Did we get to everything on Twitter?
We got to everything on Twitter so far. I did have this guy from Twitter. If you guys want to see what kind of bangers you get from Anna when she's not, criticizing the Majority Report and Silly and Billy over here. Anna, please direct all of your vile and vitriol towards us, not the good people of Majority Report like Emma Vigeland. Jeez, Anna's such a, or excuse me, I do that again. Fucking it. Emma's such a nice person. Anyway, we've gone live a lot today. I'm sorry, guys. When I'm on air, I try and talk really fast and keep you guys engaged. And after like 4 hours of it, I'm like, oh, I can no longer keep it up. Anyway, the Venezuelan gang story out of Aurora, Colorado is real. Federal authorities just arrested 2 more of them in NYC, where they fled after it became a national story. Election is over. You guys can acknowledge reality. I don't get this insistence to lie about it.
That's absolutely outrageous. But basically, so she's saying the fact that there was any Venezuelan gang member that existed in Aurora, Colorado, the fact that 2 of them exist proves she was right. Obviously, they exist. No one is denying that members of that gang lived or live in Aurora. The charge was that they didn't take over apartment complexes. That's what you were spreading. That's the BS story. And watch Jose's video, a deep dive with all the receipts that proves in undeniable detail over and over and over again how Jake and Anna lied about this. It plays clips from their coverage and contrasts it with the reality of the situation. And like I said, guys, it's not like Anna Kasparian is actually touting any serious proof here. There's no proof. All she's touting is the existence of 2 people that were a member of this gang that now are in New York City. That doesn't prove that they controlled an apartment building.
No, and actually, I put a link in the chat.
We can watch some of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I put a link in the chat in here. I want to watch some of this. Shout out to Jose. Definitely check out his channel. Hit him with a subscribe. He does really thorough edited work. And this is an awesome debunk that we're going to play for you guys while we wait for Anna to continue her meltdown. And we debunk some of the talking points that came directly from her Twitter fingers before the TYT show today.
In late August, a viral video made the rounds of a group of armed men breaking into an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado. It was claimed that these men were a part of the Tren de Aragua gang from Venezuela. Right-wing media in particular used this story to emphasize the danger of immigration from the southern border, as Aurora had recently seen an increase in migrants attempting to enter the United States.
And this is what happens if you get your talking points from Fox News, okay? And you can compare that to the coverage they've done of somebody like Hassan Piker. They've actually praised Anna Kasparian for the things that she said on Jillian Michaels' podcast, and they've criticized Hassan Piker for the actual leftist messaging that he's done on his live stream. So, the proof is in the pudding, and she's pissed off because Hassan has been able to be authentic to himself. People like Sam Cedar and Emma Vigeland have been able to be authentic authentic to themselves, and they're still able to make a living and not feel like, you know, they're not keeping up with everyone else, you know, keeping up with the Joneses or whatever Anna's obsessed with.
United States from the South, particularly from the country of Venezuela. And now this video was being used to popularize this narrative that criminal migrants were taking over apartment complexes and terrorizing the residents. This was very quickly exploited by Donald Trump during his campaign when he would claim that Aurora had been taken over by violent gangs.
Again, this is the kind of talking points that you're getting from Anna Kasparian. I'm going to skip ahead to the TYT stuff.
Missing an important element of this story. I imagine I have some overlap in viewers with this channel, so here's a little disclaimer before we dive in. TYT has been getting a lot of smoke from the left recently for a variety of takes, particularly when it comes to street-level crime. While it would be interesting to go over all of those and determine what sort of conservative streak may or may not be running through that network, this video isn't really about that. I wanted to focus on this story specifically because, as was seen a month later, they released a second video doubling down on their original commentary and once again carrying water for what I would ultimately learn was a cynical PR campaign.
And also, guys, I have to add that since this video has come out, Jose has rocked the boat even further, causing Anna to not only triple, but as of today, quadruple down and take shots at other leftists and say they were liars and she was vindicated, when in fact no such evidence ever materialized.
All targets declared
Also, as a note before we begin, since this story has had numerous developments since lots of contradictory information coming out, I wanted to be careful to cite sources that would have been publicly available before this video was originally published on the main 2IT channel. I'll be touching very briefly on those additional developments at the end of this video, but for now, I really want to focus on the video titled Venezuelan Gang Take Over an Apartment Complex, or Did They? Which did a terrible job of describing the story. This video was published on September 5th, 2024.
You're watching footage from last August featuring members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua breaking into an apartment unit in Aurora, Colorado.
10 seconds in, and we already have a noteworthy mistake. The men in this video, at the time of this video's upload, had not been identified. Although they would be identified a few weeks later, the police were reluctant to assign any kind of gang affiliation to them, never mind saying they were part of Tren de Aragua.
Yeah, see, so basically what Anna Kasparian is perpetrating is trial by media. Well, she wants to lecture about how she's the one with all kinds of journalistic credentials. You know, oh, I teach journalism. Well, you don't practice anything that you teach.
Considering how this story is being used to fuel anti-immigrant rhetoric, claiming these men to be migrants, specifically criminal ones in a gang, before they have actually been identified, seems to me...
That's some Laura Kelly shit. Or, I'm not Laura Ingram Kelly shit. Sometimes I do that.
Irresponsible. To put the issue of gangs in Aurora into a broader context, an article in the Denver Post using information from the police detailed at least 36 different gangs in Aurora, totaling 1,355 members. And based on all the articles I've read, the highest estimate I've seen for Tren de Aragua gang members in Aurora was about 50 to 20 people.
Wow, so scary. You mean to tell me there were 15 to 20 Mexicans? Guys, have you ever been to Denver, Colorado? Here's how you know that Anna doesn't get out of her fucking bubble, bro. Here's how you know that Anna hasn't actually been to the greater American states like me and Gavin have. I fucking love Denver, guys. For extra money, let's just say I went to Denver pretty often back in the day. And one thing I noticed is that you get the best Mexican food pretty much anywhere in the Midwest in Denver. In the Rockies, they make amazing fucking Mexican food. And do you know why? It's because there's a fuck ton of Latino people everywhere that live there. Okay. So is it shocking to me that you're going to see a bunch of like fucking cholos outside of an apartment building? Like, no, I'm sorry. It's not. Yeah. Like, it's not surprising. It wouldn't make me raise my fucking eyebrow.
Yeah. Now 2 of them are in New York City. They fled. So that proves Anna right.
These guys
no,
travel.
It doesn't. It does not prove you right at all.
Evan was in Chicago in August, but now he's recording in Kansas City. Suspicious. No, it's only suspicious apparently if you're like a brown guy on camera hanging out with your boys.
Yeah.
Or not, there's gang violence in Aurora isn't really the problem I have with this video. There are gangs in every big city, and some of them may include immigrants. The real problem is that there is a much deeper context that's not really being acknowledged here.
This incident has sparked a big debate and I believe some gaslighting about whether or not there is a problem with Venezuelan migrant gangs basically taking over apartment buildings or causing violent crimes at these apartment buildings.
This is where the video really starts to go off the rails. Gang violence and a gang takeover of an entire building are very different propositions. And that latter one has some important history behind it within this story. But there's another one in the video that does a better job demonstrating what I think needs to be pushed back against in this video.
Now, a lot of people say, oh, the property owner is a bad guy. That doesn't prove anything. The property owners could be bad guys.
Now we know why Cenk has a vested interest in defending landlords, by the way. Let's break some of that news. Did you guys know that Cenk's dad is a millionaire landlord in Los Angeles? So when he talks about his humble upbringing, it's kind of like Donald Trump talking about getting a small loan of $1 million from his developer father. And when you talk about homelessness and you talk about how, you know, he was a big simp for Rick Caruso, it might be because he actually knows the guy. Like, I don't know that for a fact, but there is Los Angeles is not that big of a place to have a father. If your dad owns a building that's making, you know, that's a $30 million building or whatever chat sent us earlier in our past live stream, that means you are a big fish even by Los Angeles standard. And Rick Caruso is a tycoon, which means you're familiar with him. And I just think that Cenk was trying to play chess, not checkers, with that one, except it cost him too much in the long run. But anyway, he's going to go to bat for the landlord and fearmonger about these, you know, humble.
I mean, it's not like Hassan does. Hassan is part of the same family, and they're incredibly wealthy. So you know, it's not like you can really hold people's family against them. But I do know what you're saying. Well, Cenk is regressing into the worst, apparently, of his familial instincts.
And if Hassan came out here and was trying to cosplay as I'm the working class one, I'm the one that knows what it's like to be Scott, then I would call him out and I would say, no, dude, you live in $1 million home and you don't have the same shared experience as a 30-year-old with millions of dollars that a regular person who's scared for their future has, right? And that's why I feel like, yeah, dude, if I do know all of this about you and I do know your tendencies, like all I'm saying is that it's pretty easy to draw a connection.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, I think this is a pretty
good part of this video. Sweet. I'm pretty sure this is where Cenk admits his total ignorance on the subject, right?
Yeah.
That don't take care of the rodents and the bed bugs, etc.
Oh yeah,
and
we go back to like 10 seconds.
Might have taken over the apartments.
The video really starts to go off the rails. Gang violence and a gang takeover of an entire building are very different propositions. And that latter one has some important history behind it within this story. But there's another one in the video that does a better job demonstrating what I think needs to be pushed back against in this video.
Now, a lot of people say, oh, the property owner is a bad guy. That doesn't prove anything. The property owners could be bad guys that don't take care of the rodents and the bed bugs, etc. And a Venezuelan gang might have taken over the apartments. Those two facts are not at all logically connected.
To say that,
he knows nothing about what he's talking about. He has no clue. Imagine arguing that passionately about something that you literally fucking are clueless about.
And not only that, arguing on behalf of the fear-mongering, you know, crime hysterics.
Yeah. And defending the fucking landlord, who apparently made this whole shit up to get off and you know, not have to face accountability for his horrific treatment of his tenants.
You can't hide.
This is actually something that Crystal Ball did a great job articulating on Breaking Point. She went in depth on what a scumbag scam artist this landlord was, and how he basically just used this story as a way to get out of facing any accountability for immiserating his poor tenants, these people, a lot of them who, by the way, were immigrants who were undocumented and who were living in fucking filth, guys, like trash filling the hallways. As Cenk said, yeah, rodents everywhere. Yeah, that's kind of the problem. It is actually sort of relevant. Oh, it's not relevant at all who the landlord was. Who cares if he was a giant piece of shit? Actually, yeah, no, it actually is the only thing that's relevant. The story it is the story, motherfucker. Like,
yeah, that's so important. The lack of humanity that comes out of what is supposedly a progressive news network. I mean, that's what you would literally expect from Glenn Beck. That's what you would expect from Sean Hannity. That's what you would expect from one of the most, like, hardened right-wingers. Like, what do you expect? These people are all illegal immigrants. They all come here and live in filth. Just, like, mask off racism, right? But this is just, like, his instinct is to side with the landlord. His instinct is to side with the cops. His instinct is to side with the people who want to launder their reputation at the expense of desperate people. Again, I'm telling you guys, there's a whole bunch of shit that gets wrapped up into having a disgusting ass script that you're locked into a lease on. I shared a little bit about it earlier. Okay, let's just say I've been in that situation really bad, and you internalize a lot of failure. Even as a young person, you're like, oh my God, it's my fault I ended up in this situation, even when it's not. Okay, compound that with the desperation of being an undocumented person. You're probably being exploited at work. Then you come home and you get exploited, and then you try and lay down and rest your head, and you've got fucking bed bugs, and you can't sleep because your anxiety riddled out of your mind because you don't know how you're going to pay to keep a roof over your head, even in the slumlord shack. You don't know how you're going to pay to feed your kids, and you want your kids to be confident and fucking well-rested and ready to learn at school, and you want them to be able to have a better life for themselves and be able to compete with kids who never ever in their lives ever had to think about any of this shit, okay? But there's no time for that on the Young Turks Network. There's no time to empathize with these people. There's no time to create, you know, humanity for, you know what I'm saying? There's no time to invest in who these people are. No, let's fearmonger them. They're criminals. They're migrants. They're illegal. It's Fox News. The Young Turks is the new Daily Wire as far as I'm concerned. And it's just the first step in the fucking radicalization and the red pilling now. That's exactly what they're doing. And you made an excellent point earlier, Gavin. You said, what Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian are doing right now is exactly what Jimmy Dore did to a T when he began to leave the left. What did he do? He started only attacking the Democrats. He started only attacking progressives. He would talk about how AOC was terrible. And then he would be like, wow, I can't believe Matt Gaetz was actually based on this. I can't believe Marjorie Taylor Greene was actually based on this. Or, oh my gosh, look at how cool RFK is. I think I might start supporting the vaccine or, you know, the anti-vaccine shit. Oh God, Jimmy never supported the vaccine. Or maybe he did for a second and then he realized how much money.
Well, he took the vaccine and then he said he got injured by it, remember?
Yeah, whatever his fucking Hogan story was.
His whole downfall, essentially.
Then, yeah, he got really into ivermectin and then it was off to the races, right? What Cenk is doing right now is very similar. What's he doing? He's only criticizing the progressive left. He's saying, I'm as far left as you can go, or you're beyond the pale, right? I'm moving the Overton window to the right with my network now, and I am going to start you know, constantly lampooning progressive, constantly misrepresenting arguments from people like Emma Vigeland, Sam Cedar, David Dole, Mike Figueredo. The list goes on and on. They've gone for everybody, right? If Hassan Piker wasn't Cenk's flesh and blood, I think they would go after him a lot more than they do. So, I mean, there's absolutely no heart and soul left at the Young Turks. There's no compassion left to their analysis, and there's frankly just no progressivism left there. It's a cheap facsimile for it. It's bullshit. And also shout out to Ole. Always great to see you in the chat, but it makes me a little nervous. I'm like, uh-oh, the stars are watching.
I know, we got to get out of here. It's getting too hot. Not just kidding, guys. Yeah, TYT's still live right now. Seems
yeah, they're just watching Trump's Meet the Press.
Gotcha. I'm waiting for the meltdown, guys. We gotta get some
more of the Jose video if you guys are down.
Yeah, do you want to respond to a couple of these super chats too?
Oh yeah, there's a few in here. I was gonna let them pile up a little bit, but is there anyone on the left still defending Anna? I mean, that Hutch guy was in our replies. I think he was trying to lay down the
defending her. It seemed like he was maybe implying a bit of a defense. I know that Ben Burgess still likes to fall on the sword.
He doesn't think it's fair to call out them. I would like to talk to Ben about that one-on-one as the people who are like the #1 call-outers.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and also I feel like he definitely has participated in calling out guys like Jimmy Dore or Dave Rubin in the past, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely bizarre. I mean, I have respect for Ben Burgess. And I appreciated his book, Canceling Comedians While the World Burns. I thought he made some good points in that. Maybe the sequel should be called Canceling Anna Kasparian While the World Burns. No, I'm just kidding. But I would be interested in chatting with him if he wants to. Like, I'm not like, come on, debate us, bro, or anything like that. But you know, I think overall he's done some good work. But it is kind of interesting because it seems like at this point TYT is shitting on the left way more than the left is even shitting on TYT. You know what I'm saying? Like TYT will say, someone on the left will offer a mild criticism for the most part, and then TYT will like punch back like way harder and get super vicious and act like everyone that's a former friend or colleague of theirs is doing the same sort of coverage that we are. Like they'll act like Emma Vigeland and Sam Cedar do segments like we do. And it's like, I would understand them lashing out to the extent they are if that was the case. You know what I'm saying? Because we get downright feisty. We take the gloves off. You know what I'm saying? But Emma Vigeland, like the commentary and the criticisms being offered by most of the former friends and allies, people like Lance from the Serfs, basically everyone but us and Olay, to be honest, it was downright mild, guys. That's what's crazy about it. So at this point, they're shitting on the left way more viciously.
Well, that's because it's all projection, right? They have to act like everybody else is the boogeyman so that they can justify lashing out and justify their pivot. Shout out to CBP Film also for the $5. What's crazy is y'all sound like Anna from 10 years ago. Yeah, we played Anna from 10 years ago, back when she said that Glenn Beck shouldn't be allowed on television, and then she was sitting right across from Glenn Beck talking about how the left was still beyond the pale. Yeah, that's her evolution over the last decade. So anybody that's trying to defend her can cry about it in the comment section, but I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly. She'll go on platforms like that and betray the left, stab the left in the back. All these people that, watched her and were loyal to her and really related to her in her coverage. All of a sudden, she's going to turn around and stick the knife in their fucking back on whose show? Glenn Beck. What a disgusting embarrassment low. You know what I'm saying? You can't get much lower than that. Can you think of a single show that would be more embarrassing to appear on and do a kind of interview? Like, can you think of one? I can.
Like Bill O'Reilly. I don't know. Like, it would be like that kind of a show. You'd have to go like deep into the in and out.
No, but he's such a grifter too. That's the thing. Again, he was, I'm anti-Trump. I'm a principled Ted Cruz conservative.
That's everyone in Republican media that wasn't immediately MAGA. They all followed around. Even Ted Cruz, after he called his wife ugly, like,
which of the current Republican commentators were Trump from day one? Are there any? Like, because it feels like you're right. Most of them at the beginning, even Ben Shapiro, they all pretended to be against the unholy nature of.
I think Ann Coulter was one of the first people that jumped behind Donald Trump, and when she tried to actually hold him accountable for discarding Steve Bannon and not building the wall, everybody was like, "Fuck you, you're not serious." So, there's no loyalty in the MAGA movement. It's a cult following. Shout out to you, Medfizz Alex. You were in our stream earlier. She says the U.S. like she rides pub transpo. I ride public transpo every day in LA, and I haven't seen it. Not saying it never happens, but it's rare. Oh yeah, dude, we have free public transit in Kansas City. They're trying to take it away, but I love it when we ride the streetcar for free and also the bus is free downtown. It's super tight. We don't have a train station, but I've never felt unsafe on the bus or on the streetcar or anything.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, like, there's always going to be unfortunate things that happen, but you're right. Even in a place like LA, the vast majority of the time, like it is fairly safe to be out and about. Yes, of course, there's always the risk when you go out into the public and deal with the masses. Something could happen. That is definitely possible. Not just in America, in France, in South Africa, pretty much anywhere you are. Like, that is the reality of the situation. But shout out to you, man. Thanks for the super chat.
Oh, yeah. And shout out to Amani J. Wells and Mr. Scribble for becoming YouTube members. We really appreciate you guys. Great way to support the show. It also allows you to access our uncut gems. So you can get our entire live streams unedited, unfiltered, uncut, and raw right here on YouTube. Or if you decide to really take the plunge, you can become a Combat Vanguardian or Super Vanguardian supporter on Patreon, and you'll get access to all that stuff and become our favorite best friends.
Yup, absolutely. Do you want to take some more of this Jose in, Zach?
Yeah, absolutely.
It reveals a complete lack of knowledge about the origin of this story. But to really understand where this story came from and why it became such high-profile news, we have to go back a little bit before this video made an appearance. Before I start the story, I do have to establish who the players are in all of this. The gang takeover narrative affects 3 different complexes that have supposedly been taken over. The first one, where that infamous video was captured, is the Edge at Lowry. The Edge at Lowry is a group of buildings, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to refer to the collective group of buildings as the Edge at Lowry. The second location is Whispering Pines. And the third is Aspen Grove, which is more commonly called Fitzsimmons Place. As you might have noticed on the map, these complexes are pretty far from one another, each several kilometers away. The fact that they're so distant raises an interesting question as to why these 3 in particular have supposedly been taken over. They aren't the only apartment buildings in this neighborhood, after all. One common thread is all 3 of these complexes are owned by a guy named Rev Baumgarten.
Move up. Marksman is down.
Zev Baumgarten. These properties would be managed by a company called CBZ Management, which is also owned by Baumgarten. After they were purchased in the intervening years, these properties would rack up dozens of complaints that were filed with the city. It also received a number of code violations. You can read some of these historic complaints online pretty regularly if you look at the Better Business Bureau's website for CBZ Management. The state of disrepair and disregard for properties seems to be pretty common for any building managed by this company.
Yeah, all I was saying is that's the whole idea. That's what it comes down to. It's this asshole. He did a bunch of propaganda where he shockingly, I can't believe he was so blamed the most marginalized people for his problems as a real estate developer and as a property manager. Shocking. Guess who fell for it? Anna Kasparian and Cenk User, who loves nothing more than a few manga about crime. Pretty embarrassing. Pretty stupid, pretty low.
Oh yeah, it's disgusting. Again, and then they want to turn around and point the fingers at everyone else on the left and blame all of us for the rise of MAGA, the comeback of Donald Trump. It's all our fault. It's our fault. Meanwhile, for months and months, they're spreading this bullshit on their show. They're spreading this anti-immigrant bullshit, feeding into the exact furor that led to Trump's rise in the first place. The same xenophobic garbage based, for the most part, on lies. As we've talked about a million times, immigrants, even illegal immigrants, are largely far more safe community members. They commit far less crime than American citizens. But Jake and Anna highlight these stories, which aren't even true, to make it seem like the opposite is true, and to make it seem like this is a big problem, and to make it seem like, oh, the Democratic Party doesn't care enough about this. Kamala Harris doesn't care enough about this. The border bill that they tried to shove through a year before the election, it wasn't fascist enough, right? Maybe they should have run Joe Arpaio as the candidate. Maybe they should have recruited him from the retirement home, over in Maricopa County. Maybe the Democrats should have run him. Like, what the fuck? How could they possibly have catered more to the Republican Party? How could they possibly have pandered more to the anti-immigrant mob that has become so in charge of our political discourse? You know what I'm saying? Not just in America, but worldwide. This anti-immigrant bullshit, it's so mainstream. It's literally the defining ideology of most right-wing parties in the entire world.
Yep, it's the unifier. The Vitor Orbans, the Marine Le Pens, the Donald Trumps, the Jair Bolsonaro. I don't actually know if anti-immigration is a problem in Brazil, but you know what I mean. That seems to be a big through line amongst a lot of these. When Boris Johnson was, the head of UK, the Tory party. Anyways, yeah, it was all a big deal. Oh my gosh, there's too many brown people coming into this country. 100%. And, instead of providing any pushback or antidote to those, arguments, disgusting, antiquated, problematic arguments. No, nothing. It's just feeding the fire, feeding the hateful flames, and making life more troublesome for working class people. We've got one more super chat. John Ablaha, thank you so much for the $10. If not before, the second jank called Sam a grifter, all credibility went out the window. The anger is them trying to convince themselves they aren't pulling a door. Yeah, 100%. It's all projection. They are following the money. They know that they are absolutely fucked, guys. You don't understand. They are in such bad political straits, but they're in even worse financial straits. They are so deep into the red, guys. They have to pay back Jeffrey Katzenberg. They are not making money. Let me say that again. They're not profitable right now. They're bleeding cash, and that's why they're flailing like people who are drowning out at sea. They're just kicking away, desperate for a buoy that nobody's going to throw them.
Yep, 100%. And I don't think we got to this one, Zach. For Matt Leck. Did we talk about this tweet? I wanted to throw it up real quick.
Oh, no, we didn't actually see that one. Let's go ahead and get that guy up here.
Yeah, I think he makes a pretty good point. And this was a quote tweet of his own take here. He said, how much of TYT's membership dues have gone...
we reacted to this one.
Yeah, no, I was just refreshing people's mind. How many of, TYT's membership dues have gone toward returning this guy's investment instead of the TYT employees? And then he says, it's very simple. Cenk got a bunch of money from an almost billionaire to make online CNN. He and Anna failed despite having had talent that has superseded them under their umbrella at some point. They could have maybe got them there. They are lashing out and looking for new markets. And I think that's a great analysis of the situation. You guys also have to keep in mind that Matt Lake isn't just bullshitting. He knows basically all the people that used to work at TYT that no longer do. Obviously, Emma Vigeland being the prime example. Obviously, she works at the Majority Report, but yeah, what a great insight. It basically proves exactly what we've been saying, that that Katzenberg money, it was more than just an investment. Cenk really did take it as an opportunity to make TYT like this, you know, sort of online version of a mainstream news company, something like a CNN or an MSNBC. And I think that he makes such a great point that the total failure of that project is why we're seeing this sort of behavior now. It's just lashing out, the manifestation of that rage and that bitterness, seeing it all fall apart.
Oh, 100%. And that's what I meant about them kicking out at sea with their millions and millions of dollars in the hold of this Jeffrey Katzenberg guy who wants them to be a profit-making machine. He doesn't want to see that, like, he wants to turn them into a corporate media apparatus. He wants to turn them into a cash cow.
Or at least he wanted to.
Well, yeah, right, actually. And everything that they tried failed. They killed the brand, right? Because it wasn't authentic. It was faux-aggressive and not progressive. Anyway, great point from Matt. Always love it when he gets spicy because that guy has saved every receipt, much like the Vanguard. And he knows how to put together quite a Twitter. You know.
Absolutely.
Anyways, did you have anything
else?
No, I'm about exhausted today, man. I'm about at the end of the road. You know, little Boys to Men action for everybody. That's all I have left in the tank.
I feel you, man. I feel you. I'd love to stay live a little bit longer, but I'm also getting a little bit tired, bro.
Yeah, we're gonna be back tomorrow. Everybody hit the subscribe button. We'll be back tomorrow 1 o'clock in the afternoon for our regular live stream. We're gonna be talking about Kyle Kulinski eating the Young Turks lunch, how he was the only one of the original Justice Democrats commentators to be able to make it through the Biden era, come out on top without compromising any of his principles. Okay, he's still out here making the real case. I guess you could put him along the likes of a Sam Cedar, but I always consider it a little bit different because he's just this, you know, one-man wolf pack.
Means and the well, after managing to elude police for 5 solid days, authorities have finally captured the person who they say is responsible for the assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on the streets of Midtown Manhattan. Ladies and gentlemen, they got him. They got him. Now, this comes after the nation's collective reaction to his death has shocked both legacy media and the executive class. Turns out that American citizens have an extremely negative opinion of how our awful healthcare system operates because a majority of people have had to deal with it directly, either for themselves or for a loved one. And millions upon millions of people have very personal stories about how our for-profit healthcare industry has destroyed their lives or the lives of someone they know. Quite literally, by the way, because in the search for endless profit and a green line that never stops going up, companies like United Healthcare will deny coverage for patients who need treatments, surgeries, prescriptions, and any number of things that should be covered after you've spent a significant portion of your paycheck to stay covered. Even if it means that person is going to die a pointlessly painful death. Yeah, it's been a really interesting week. Lots of people sharing their stories. Yeah, it happened to me. Every story is just worse than the last one. Yeah, there's been some horrific stuff, and a lot of doctors writing in and putting their words to it, claiming that they try their hardest to get these insurance companies to approve treatments and medications that their very sick patients desperately need. Yeah, they are literally, it is a parasitic industry that is not necessary and makes everything harder for everyone else involved. Yes. So, obviously, it's not all that shocking when people in this country from all over the political spectrum don't show a whole hell of a lot of sympathy for the CEO of a company who represents the pain and suffering that comes with the unfortunate act of getting injured or sick in America. That's why over the weekend, the shooter was being celebrated, both online and off, with countless memes, fan cams, and people, ironically or not, fawning over him because of his dashing good looks. There was even a healthcare shooter lookalike contest in New York City over the weekend. They're having lookalike contests there. It's the latest for those who didn't get to experience flash mobs in the 2010s, the early 2010s, this is basically the past 2 weeks has been a version of that. Yeah, more than a few people showed up, dressed up as the assassin in Washington Square Park. Yeah. And just to rub it in, America's internet sleuths, TikTok detectives, and true crime podcast hosts pretty much all basically said, no, we're good actually, when people noticed they were not contributing to any search efforts. Also, Ben Shapiro and a lot of conservative talk tried to make content around it. Like, can you believe these radical libs are celebrating this guy's death? And even their own comment sections were like, yeah, it's not really a partisan thing. This is we've all had horrible experiences with this. And one of the Ben Shapiro comments was, yeah, this just shows how disconnected you are from the reality that a lot of your viewers face.
That is, so there's been...
Because when you have the money and the means and the personal doctors to pay for medical treatment in the United States, it is actually great. It's the struggle that everyone else, 99% of people have to go through, that certain rich people never get to see, that is bothering the fuck out of people and killing them.
Yeah, it's, every naysayer on social media, like, you're really telling on yourselves by just being like, that's ridiculous. I cannot even possibly put myself in the shoes of anyone celebrating this. And like, well, then you probably had a pretty great life.
Yeah, with no issues affecting any family members or yourself.
Not this time.
Anyway, here's NBC News. I have yet to see a single video that's pounding the drum of we have to find him. And that's unique, said Michael McWhorter, better known as Tizzy Ent on TikTok, where he posts true crime and viral news content for his 6.7 million followers. And in other situations of some kind of blatant violence, I would absolutely be seeing that.
Everyone's like, no, we're good. Don't worry about it. But all of that extra detective, potential crowdsourced work wasn't needed. And the tireless efforts of the...
They were checking every bush.
Yep, the tireless efforts of the NYPD, whose $10 billion yearly budget and access to one of the largest surveillance networks in the world just got them absolutely nowhere.
There were Candy Crush levels to beat.
Yes. Why am I up here on street level trying to solve a crime when I can be down there in the subways next to the turnstiles and playing Candy Crush?
Yeah. Also, I'm really hungry. Where's the nearest Shake Shack? Let's all go.
Though it was kind of funny seeing video footage from over the weekend where the NYPD performed a very thorough search, quote unquote, of Central Park. By which we mean they all just kind of walked around, hung out, leaned over at some point to...
Just really exaggerated, just like, all right, I'm visually inspecting this bush here.
Yeah.
All right,
it's past the visual inspection.
Clear.
And this is all while almost certainly billing the city for a significant amount of overtime.
Yep. Yeah. And also while Eric Adams was just talking out of his ass.
Yeah.
Just straight up lying, because this was perfect for him, because it's finally a chance to get a win. And in any case, a great distraction from the fact that he is extremely corrupt.
Oh, yeah.
And possibly going to jail at some point. But yeah, he was just straight up lying about what information they had.
Yeah, the whole weekend was filled with the NYPD basically putting out press releases that said it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Our guess is as good as yours. And there was like an image that someone put out where it was like the suspect's possible locations or whereabouts, and it was just a dot over New York City and then just arrows extending every direction away from it. They're saying he left the city.
Yeah, and when I said, ladies and gentlemen, they got him, the NYPD.
No, a McDonald's worker got it.
Some old man or woman at some busybody. Yeah, some Karen. Yeah. The ultimate Karen, the final boss of Karen.
Yeah.
Anyway, a backpack was recovered at one point. Turns out it was filled with a bunch of Monopoly money, which is a nice touch. None of that mattered, though, because the person who finally led police to the healthcare assassin was just some busybody down at an Altoona, Pennsylvania McDonald's location, where the guy showed up wearing a similar outfit with a backpack. He was also carrying the weapon used in the crime on him, which is I don't know why you would do that.
Yeah.
Obviously suspicious. It would lead many to believe that he maybe wanted to get caught. Maybe he figured he would have gotten caught immediately and was just like,
now no one's gonna read my manifesto.
Damn, I should just turn myself in.
But I don't want to do that. Instead, I'm going to go to the second corporate fast food place that exposes my identity. Because the first one was Starbucks.
Yeah.
and then it was McDonald's. And if this guy had been following any boycotts, it would have been safe. But
That's true.
Turns out, as we'll get to, because we haven't even revealed his name yet. We've been teasing the entire time. But as it turns out, this guy, politics all over the place, but very much toward the libertarian right, tech.
He's a
techno-fascist kind of.
sort of just what you expect from your average mid to late 20s single dude who doesn't have any firm beliefs or principles and just kind of listens to a lot of podcasts and reads a lot of books.
And until something directly affected his quality of life, in which it radicalized him, which this has gone back. These happen all the times where this guy specifically isn't like I don't want to say he's a member of the Republican Party or whatever. I'm just saying members of the Republican Party in particular really do finally change their tunes when they're faced with the reality that their constituents have been facing for decades. You see this, you see them come around on certain things, like when they have a gay or lesbian daughter, someone in their family, or someone gets hurt or injured and can't afford medical care.
Yeah, they're not good at the whole empathy thing.
Until it happens to them.
But if something happens to them personally, then it's like, oh, fuck. This is fucked up. We should do something about this. Anyways, whether you wanted to get caught or not, the police have arrested the suspect, who they have identified as 26-year-old Luigi Mangione.
Hey!
Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum. That's Chuck Mangione. I don't know if they're related or not.
Probably not.
But just the funniest possible name for this assassin to have.
Yeah, I nearly spit out my drink when I saw the news, and then immediately, the first thing I saw when I opened BlueSky was a post from Brendel Board, who said, "You're laughing. America's greatest criminal is named Matthew Spaghetti, and you're laughing." I mean, look, however you feel about what this guy did or didn't do, it's a beautiful Italian-American name.
Yeah. Also, it sounds like it's the name of the Luigi's Mansion game in the original Italian.
Yeah.
In America, it's Luigi's Mansion, but back in Italy, it's Luigi's Mangione.
It's like a name that you would come up with if you were a hack writer and you were like, okay, the suspect is an Italian-American.
Yeah. How do we drive home
the fact that he's Italian?
He's very Italian.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get to more of the reactions and memes regarding this guy, but first it's time for everyone in the world to snoop around. Take a look into this guy's digital footprint to get an idea of what was going through his head and what a footprint he left.
Yeah.
Turns out, just like everyone else who has tried an assassination this year, his politics and worldview are pretty incoherent. A lot of conflicting viewpoints and beliefs, but in general, yeah, he seems to be a very well-educated dude who comes from a decently well-off family, who retweets and responded to a bunch of anti-woke memes and viewpoints. He did some coding on Civilization 6.
Elliot's favorite game.
Yeah.
What did Elliot know, and when did he know it?
Thank you for your service, sir.
Yeah, Elliot looked the other way and kept playing.
He worked as a data engineer for TrueCar, and at one point he appears to have injured his back so badly that he was brought face to face with.
What up, Matt? How you doing, man? Free Luigi. Free Luigi.
The American healthcare system, which set him on the path that led him to the CEO of United Healthcare the morning of their big Investors Day conference.
And I have no idea if this played into it, but people did point out the fact that he is 26, and that is the year you get kicked off your parents' plan.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
This sucks. Yeah.
And by the way, fucking 10 years ago, or a little bit more than 10 years ago, you got kicked off your parents' plan at 18.
Yeah. Yeah, figure it out. But yeah, he posted, he had x-ray photos on a couple of his social profiles, and yeah, it looked like a very serious operation.
Especially for someone who is young and appears to be extremely physically active.
Yeah,
this is a debilitating.
Dude was jacked, and also on his Goodreads profile, he had read and rated multiple books on dealing with severe back.
Hey, that C isn't like Corleone or something. Matthew Corleone. We got a couple Italians over here. What? Oh.
Back pain, some of which he did not like. Gave it 2 stars. No, not helpful. But some of which he liked a little bit more. But yeah, if there were any doubt regarding this guy's motivations, he was apparently in possession of a manifesto that police say showed contempt for corporate America, healthcare providers in particular. And
Hopefully someday we get to read that manifesto.
It's already coming out in parts, but I will say that much like a video that was released on Monday, there are a lot of fake things going around.
Yeah.
There's a fake manifesto. Ken Klippenstein has already.
There's a fake YouTube channel.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So be wary out there. Not all of it's real. We tried to find as much real stuff as possible for this episode. So here you go with more on exactly who this guy is. Here is NPR. Police in Altoona, Pennsylvania have arrested 26-year-old Luigi Mangione in connection with the fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Mangione stood for a preliminary arraignment at the Blair County Courthouse on Monday evening, where he faced 5 charges, including illegal possession of a firearm and forgery. Police say he was found with a 3D printed ghost gun believed to have been used in the killing, as well as a fake ID and a handwritten 3-page document indicating his motivation. The 26-year-old fitness enthusiast had graduated as valedictorian of Baltimore's private Gilman School and went on to attend the University of Pennsylvania, where he received both bachelor's and master's degrees in computer science, with a focus on artificial intelligence. Law enforcement officials say he does not have any known criminal history. On social media, Mangione discussed topics like artificial intelligence, his religious agnosticism, and his belief that porn should be regulated no less than alcohol, cigarettes, and travel. On X, he retweeted messages decrying the woke mind virus and appeared supportive of Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, 2 tech billionaires who helped thrust Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to their 2024 election victory.
Yeah, I don't know if you're still there, Matt, but I used to have neighbors that were I'm in Chicago. We're growing up around here, and I had neighbors when I was a kid who were direct descendants of Al Capone, and but they went by Capone because it's kind of funny because this one dude who's around my age named John Capone looked like Scarface. You can tell. You can tell he's a descendant. Very Italian.
Views that seemingly put him at odds with the mythos of a Robin Hood type figure on a rampage against the wealthy.
Yeah.
But it doesn't put him at odds with a lot of people who just assumed that he was pissed off the healthcare industry.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not like this guy was just targeting just rich people.
Right.
He clearly had a target for a reason, and that was a healthcare executive, not some random billionaire.
Also, a lot of the things about this guy suck, but that sounds like a very, very average dude in his mid-20s.
Above average based on his schooling, but yes.
Well, yeah, but just in terms of his opinions on the world, I don't think it's really all that remarkable. It doesn't seem like he was alt-right or
26.
fashy.
That's around the time the frontal lobe.
Luigi Mangione. Beautiful.
Finally stops maturing in men.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's also been discussion that he may have had some mental health break at some point in the last 6 months. People found messages. People found his Twitter account, and then they found mentions of his Twitter account.
People wondering where he is.
Yeah, people
his
being
family said
hey,
he was estranged for a little while.
Yeah, there was a chain of messages from some guy being hey, you're supposed to be in my my wedding party.
Oh,
and I need you to do work, and I cannot get a hold of you. No one can get a hold of you. Your family can't even get a hold of you. We're worried about you.
Well, it does sound like the back injury was
Get through this guy in jail. I say, let him cook.
What recent? So that could have caused a huge. What I'm saying is, this guy, he was obviously, and still at this point is in great shape, young college graduate, working, already has a job, and then suffers a debilitating back injury.
Yeah,
it's a complete divergence from a lifestyle you were living. So it explains a lot of why he was potentially acting this way. But as far as the motive itself, his social media accounts indicated that, he was suffering from a back injury and was reading multiple books about recovery. So, like we said, that seems to have been what sparked all of this. Quotes from the manifesto were being released in very small parts at the time that we filmed this. But it does seem pretty clear from what's been released so far that this was
manja.
But that this dude acted in what he believed to be the best interests of the country. From CNN, who had the most detailed information regarding the official clips from the manifesto at the time that we filmed this. A multi-paged handwritten document was also recovered from the suspect when he was arrested, according to Kenny. It seemed that the man has some ill will towards corporate America, Kenny said. In the document, the suspect rails against the healthcare industry and suggested that violence is the answer. A police official who had seen the document told CNN. 2 quotes in the document include, "The parasites had it coming," and "I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done," an official said.
So the latest as of when
You know, I'm sorry for the strife and drama, but what are you gonna do? Huh? What you gonna do? What can you do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do about it?
5 charges, including forgery, carrying a firearm without a license, possessing instruments of a crime, and fake identification. Also murder. He's being held without bail, hasn't entered a plea. Many of the shooter's social media accounts have been scrubbed from the internet, but not before plenty of people downloaded his Twitter profile and screenshotted posts from his other profiles, including LinkedIn, Facebook, Goodreads, and Instagram. A YouTube channel that was alleged to belong to the shooter uploaded a video on Monday that appeared to be a kill switch video, which was only scheduled to go live after the shooter was apprehended. This was outed as a fake, and people found the shooter's actual account, which hadn't been active for several months. So yeah, if you see the shooter post-arrest video making the rounds, it's a fake.
As are most of the manifestos that you're...
Yeah. The channel was removed for violating YouTube's impersonation policies after the channel name and handle were updated on Monday, following news of Mangioni's arrest to appear as if it belonged to the suspect. That channel on Monday posted a cryptic countdown video that said, "If you see this, I'm already under arrest."
Also, from their ongoing coverage of the story, CNN spoke to Luigi Mangioni's recent roommate, who said it was unfathomable that his former roommate would do this, but also confirmed that he had been suffering from a debilitating injury. RJ Martin said the two, who lived together in a co-living and co-working community in Hawaii, weren't just roommates, they were friends. He was a very thoughtful person, communicated really well, looked friendly, had good relationships with everyone. He was even, in some ways, a bit of a leader, Martin said. When I first interviewed him before he moved in, I remember he said he had a back issue and he was hoping to get stronger in Hawaii. Martin said Mangioni took a basic surf lesson that ended up leaving him in bed for about a week and that it was really traumatic and difficult. Martin also said Mangioni had surgery earlier this year that left him with screws in his body. He sent me the x-rays, Martin said. It looked heinous, with just giant screws going into his spine. After that, he called me once. I didn't pick up. The communication between the two kind of fizzled out after that. Martin said Mangioni never talked about guns, never once talked about violence. He was absolutely not a violent person, as far as I could tell, Martin said. Yeah, he tried to do something fun, went for a little surf, and was bedridden for a week. So, all adds up.
Meanwhile, the Altoona, Pennsylvania McDonald's location where the shooter was apprehended has been inundated with 1-star reviews after one of their employees recognized the shooter and called the police. 1 star. This location has rats in the kitchen that will make you sick, and your insurance isn't going to cover it.
They got rats back there.
You know.
They're tattling.
As for the other posts online, look, I mean, we're not going to be able to cover them all because this story has caused an event on social media that hasn't been rivaled since that submarine imploded while diving down to the Titanic. But here's a few of the ones that stood out once the shooter was captured, including this first one, which mentions the United Healthcare shooter's actual nickname, the Claims Adjuster.
Yeah, the internet really crowdsourced that one and came out on top.
Yeah.
Here you go. Kim Kelly says, grappling with the implications of the claims adjuster
fucking
turning out to
claims
be a hot
adjuster
Italian
over
tech
here.
pro
Fuck
gym
you,
rat who went to Penn,
Mangioni.
seems to have had a pretty gnarly back injury, retweets anti-woke nonsense, and has read not one, but 2 books by Steve-O.
Yeah, and one of the books by Steve-O was listed on
I
Goodreads
love that he
as
read 2
having
books by
read
Steve-O,
twice.
2. I didn't even know Steve-O
So
had
it
2
was
books.
so nice, he read it
Only
twice.
one.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know he had one
Spaghetti
book.
policy analyst said, I think Luigi Mangioni rating the Unabomber's manifesto a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads is so funny. It's like, yeah, that was pretty good, but I could do better.
Well, we'll have to wait and see his manifesto afterwards. But Hunter Harris said, he's hot as shit, you must have quit.
Sweet Helen Aid said, well, actually, Luigi Mangioni was in LA with me all last week, so there's no way. Sorry, guys, try me.
Sorry, Pop Crave.
Oh, good.
Pop Crave posted, Dave Franco and Ryan Murphy are trending after the United Healthcare CEO assassin suspect was ID'd as Luigi Mangioni.
Yeah. Flop Goblin says, the last thing Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, saw, and it's an image of Luigi from the Mario Brothers holding a gun.
Yep. Then Tyler Austin Harper, looking forward to the predictable characters finding a way to use the Ivy League educator.
Like Luigi from Mario Brothers, like having a moment, am I right?
Major who shot the healthcare CEO as a justification for defunding Marxist humanities departments at public universities.
Yeah. Jess Dweck said, this means there's a Waluigi Mangione who works in private equity.
Yes, the existence of Luigi Mangione, that would lead you to believe that there is a Waluigi Mangione out there.
Yeah.
Juniper posted the mugshot and added, most photogenic guy award. So,
And
plenty
they
of
won't
people
put
noticed
him
that
into Smash
inexplicably.
either.
The shooter, during the mugshot, appeared to have been forced to wear multiple jackets. The menswear guy, Derek Guy, he commented with a crying emoji saying, they made him put all the jackets on.
Just had to be sure.
Everyone loves those jackets. Put all of them on.
Steal his look.
The American people don't want to see you in a normal t-shirt.
That backpack that he wore is like sold out. People are like, damn, that's a nice backpack.
They should stuff it with Monopoly money when they ship it.
Jared Skolnick said, what is the charge? Eating a meal? Eating a succulent McDonald's meal? This is Democracy Manifest.
And from Lauren Lavin, we are finally on the verge of learning once and for all if Italians are white.
Yeah. Anyway, that last comment leads us into the final parts of this, because on the day that Luigi Mangione was captured, another vigilante who killed a homeless man in a subway car in the middle of the day in front of a bunch of people, many of whom were like, hey, stop.
This is
please stop.
crazy. What a
man.
piece of shit.
Was acquitted by a jury of his peers. And all of this playing out at the same time has really given people a much clearer picture of how...
Well, since we're on vigilante justice, just saying, this guy is walking around. Probably doesn't have security.
The right likes to say that this assassination is absolutely appalling, while at the same time cheering for people like Daniel Penny and Kyle Rittenhouse.
There's clearly a
who went
two-tier
out of
justice
their
system.
way to kill someone when other options were definitely available. It becomes even more blatant when you witness the absolute lack of self-awareness in this next clip from Fox News host Laura Ingraham, where she, in one breath, talks about people vocally supporting the healthcare shooter, and seconds later pitches to what appears to be an uplifting story about the subway chokehold guy getting acquitted. It is so obvious that it's bizarre. Here you go.
The Instagram posts from nutbag people, which I was sent in the commercial break earlier, crazy. Like, he's cute, and people celebrating this. This is a sickness. Honestly, it's so disappointing, but I guess we shouldn't be surprised. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And up next, the other big news out of New York, Daniel Penny. A lot of people think he's a hero, and tonight he's not guilty. My take next.
Okay, well, we somehow have more news for you coming up in just a minute. But first, we're going to thank
so
today's sponsor
fucking
for supporting
fucked.
the show, starting with Henson Shaving. If you were born after 1970, there is a very good chance that your first razor was a multi-blade razor. These razors have been the status quo for over half a century, but where has that gotten us? According to a recent study, 2/3 of men expect some irritation when they shave. And now, this next one is what really makes us upset. Over 2 billion plastic razors enter the landfill each year in the U.S. alone. This is why Henson Shaving wants to change the shaving industry, not through gimmicks like subscriptions or moisturizing strips, but through groundbreaking research on the impact that shaving has on your skin. When Henson looked at other razors, they noticed a consistent lack of blade support. Basically, that the blades have too much bend or flex. Think of anything else that you cut, kitchen knife, scissors, etc. You would not want that blade that you use to be moving, because you'd have less control. Henson's razors are designed to hold the blade so that there is less bend and less wobble.
Henson makes their razors in their aerospace machine shop in Canada that also made parts for a Mars rover and the International Space Station. Henson's machinists are exceptional at manufacturing, and that level of precision is one of the big reasons their razor is so much gentler on your skin. They've made it so the blade extends only 0.0013 inches past the shave plane of the razor. That's less than the thickness of a human hair. Plus, the Henson razor works with standard dual-edged blades that cost less than 10 cents each. Once you own a Henson razor, it's only about $3 to $5 per year to replace the blades. The razor itself is made of aluminum, and there is no plastic. There's also no plastic in Henson packaging. This is a great razor.
Yeah.
You're working with a tool here. If you switch directly from a plastic razor to the Henson razor, you're like, okay.
You'll never go back.
All right.
Yeah, once you have the real shave, it's hard to go back to what you used to.
The precision, the gentleness.
Yeah.
You're gonna like this razor. Visit hensonshaving.com/itdaily to pick the razor for you and use code TODAYDAILY to get a free shave cream with your razor. Just make sure to add it to your cart. That's a free Henson shave cream when you head to hensonshaving.com/todaydaily and use code TODAYDAILY at checkout.
Now, this episode is also sponsored by HexClad. Are you still using that pan that you've had since college?
Ew.
It's time for a serious upgrade for yourself or for a loved one this holiday season, and luckily, Hexclad has quality cookware that will last you a lifetime. With Hexclad's non-stick and stainless steel hybrid technology, not only will your meals likely taste better, cleanup will be so much easier. Don't blow it again this year with socks and ugly sweaters. Say, I love you, with the gift of Hexclad, even though you're really thinking that doing the dishes will be so much easier for the rest of your life. Yeah, that's right. Hexclad also has a lifetime warranty, and these are literally the best set of pots and pans that you will ever buy, so have no fear.
Hexclad's 6-piece set is the perfect starter bundle to enjoy the incredible versatility of their products. The set features 6 of their most popular pots and pans with an accompanying lid that can handle all of your holiday cooking needs. Your kitchen will never be the same. In a good way. Say goodbye to sticking, burning, and uneven cooking, and hello to perfection with every dish. Whether you're a seasoned chef or just starting to explore your passion for cooking, Hexclad empowers you to unleash your creativity and culinary skills with confidence. I've always wanted a wok.
Oh,
now
yeah.
I finally got a wok.
Yeah, are you tossing rice up into the air like a pro yet?
Oh, baby. I'm throwing shrimp at people. Hey.
Just take a picture and look like a surf wave, a break.
But these pots and pans cook very evenly. The hexagons distribute the heat. You don't have to turn it all the way up. You can actually keep
gas
the heat
stove, electric stove, whatever works.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is very high quality cookware. Believe me. So for a limited time, you can shop Hexclad's biggest sale of the year and save up to 42% off. Go to hexclad.com/itdaily. Get the best deal of the year and support our show at hexclad.com/itdaily.
All right, back to the news now, and for some potentially good news on the whole Fox News front, or at least news that will make things far more interesting for their future as a network. A commissioner in Nevada, we talked about the story a couple weeks ago. He's trying to alter his final testament so that control goes more to Lachlan.
Yeah, the good son.
His best son, his best boy, so that he can keep running Fox News as the hyper-conservative outlet.
News Corp is currently in like a trust that is equally controlled by all of his children, but yeah, he's trying to change that so the more Libby ones don't have any influence.
Well, Commissioner in Nevada has rejected Rupert Murdoch's bid to amend an irrevocable trust, which, yeah, he was trying to do to make sure that media organization would go to his best boy, Lachlan. It is playing out exactly like the plot of a certain HBO show.
Well, there's also, did you see this news where apparently one of the multiple Murdoch kids saw an episode in the final season of Succession, which deals with, what happens in a succession situation, and especially when there's no clear plan in place. And they watched that and they were like, oh, we shouldn't let that happen. That would be really fucking embarrassing for us. We should have a protocol in place. Yeah. So yeah, the commissioner said, no take backsies. And as of right now, that means that whenever the 93-year-old Rupert Murdoch bites the dust, the media empire will be split evenly among 4 of his children, which is causing a lot of uncertainty around the Fox News offices. So the idea that the direction and the messaging of the brand shifting to something less conservative, it's almost certainly a pipe dream. The money is in what they're doing right now. Regardless, here's the New York Times with more on the decision.
The commissioner, Edmund J. Gorman Jr., concluded in a decision filed on Saturday that the father and son, who is the head of Fox News and News Corp, had acted in bad faith in their effort to amend the irrevocable trust, which divides control of the company equally among Mr. Murdoch's 4 oldest children, Lachlan, James, Elizabeth, and Prudence, after his death. The ruling was at times scathing. At one point in his 96-page opinion, Mr. Gorman characterizes the plan to change the trust as a carefully crafted charade to permanently cement Lachlan Murdoch's executive roles inside the empire, regardless of the impact such control would have over the companies or the beneficiaries of the family trust. In a statement, James, Elizabeth, and Prudence said, "We welcome Commissioner Gorman's decision and hope that we can move beyond this litigation to focus on strengthening and rebuilding relationships among all family members." Seems like they're not really happy.
This all up.
Yeah, it's going to be
water under the bridge.
It was. I'm sure it was a great Thanksgiving. It's going to be an even better Christmas.
Yeah. So their reporting continues. They add a bit more context to the battle of control of Fox News, saying, "The battle over the family trust is not about money. Mr. Murdoch is not seeking to diminish any of his children's financial stakes in the company, but rather about future control of the world's most powerful conservative media empire, which includes Fox News, The Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, and major newspapers and television outlets in Australia and Britain. Mr. Murdoch, now 93, has long intended to bequeath these sprawling media conglomerates to his children, much as his own father had passed on his vastly smaller media company to Mr. Murdoch and his sister. But he is also determined to preserve the right-wing bent of his empire, and reconciling these two desires has become a growing challenge for him. Well, we certainly hope for nothing but the worst for Mr. Murdoch and his son. But like you said, it's highly unlikely that Fox News will ever change, especially now that Trump's been reelected.
Yeah.
Vindicated once again.
Yep. And while we're briefly on the topic of the incoming Trump administration, we should probably point out that, not that it matters anymore, but multiple Nobel Prize winning laureates are urging U.S. senators to please, for the sake of humanity, please do not confirm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead the Food and Drug Administration.
Sounds like a bunch of elites trying to stop America from finding out the truth about fluoride milk and ivermectin.
In a letter obtained by the New York Times, 75 Nobel Prize winners joined together to protest this nomination. And here's more from their reporting. The letter, obtained by the New York Times, marks the first time in recent memory that Nobel laureates have banded together against a cabinet choice, according to Richard Roberts, winner of the 1993 Nobel in Physiology or Medicine, who helped draft the letter. The group tries to stay out of politics whenever possible, he said, but the confirmation of Mr. Kennedy, a staunch critic of mainstream medicine who has been hostile to the scientists and agencies he would oversee, is a threat that the Nobel laureates could not ignore, Dr. Roberts said. These political attacks on science are very damaging, he said. You have to stand up and protect it. The laureates questioned whether Mr. Kennedy, who they say has a lack of credentials in medicine, science, or administration, was fit to lead the department responsible for protecting public health and funding biomedical research.
Placing Mr. Kennedy in charge of DHHS would put the public's health in jeopardy and undermine America's global leadership in the health sciences, the letter warned. If confirmed, Mr. Kennedy's opposition to well-established public health tools like vaccines and the fluoridation of drinking water would pose a risk to the country's well-being, the letter said. Laureates decried Mr. Kennedy's promotion of conspiracy theory. Mr. Kennedy has falsely linked vaccines to autism, rejected established science showing that HIV causes AIDS, and suggested without evidence that the coronavirus targeted and spared certain ethnic groups. The laureates also noted that Mr. Kennedy has been a belligerent critic of the agencies that would fall under his purview, including the Food and Drug Administration, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the National Institutes of Health. The leader of DHHS should continue to nurture and improve, not to threaten, these important and highly respected institutions and their employees, the letter said. What did he say about HIV? I'd like to know more.
That came up when he was running for president, but yeah, I can't remember what he said.
I had forgotten that he did say that different ethnicities were getting coronavirus.
What did he say? Like the Ashkenazi Jews were the ones that were surviving the most, or something? Yeah. It was something like that.
Which a lot of people are just like, okay, the Jews made the coronavirus.
Yeah, he certainly wasn't helping the situation. Anyways, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Trump he wants to pick people that are basically just influencers.
Yeah.
And our case,
he's very loyal.
Yeah.
And he's a Kennedy. My own Kennedy. My very own Kennedy.
Just don't open that mouth, Robert. Don't open it. It's like John Bolton's mustache. People just they can't look past it. Anyways, finally today, an American tried to do some American shit, got caught, and then tried to play dumb until her internet search history exposed the fact that she did, in fact, intentionally try to sneak a gold-plated firearm into another country where she would be attending clown college, despite knowing that it was illegal to smuggle a gun into the country.
I thought this was America. It's not.
Oh, well, this is a gag gun. It's for clown college.
It says bang when you pull the trigger.
Yeah,
it shoots a little bit of water.
It squirts water out. I didn't say ghost gun, I said gag gun.
Gag gun.
If only it was a squirt gun or something like that, she could have claimed it was an elaborate bit, but it wasn't. It was a real gold-plated gun. Now she's going to prison. Here's The Guardian with more and some great quotes from the case. A U.S. woman who flew to Australia with a gold-plated pistol in her luggage has been sentenced to a year in jail, despite claiming she brought it with her for protection. Liliana Goodson pleaded guilty to charges of illegally importing an unauthorized firearm and illegally importing ammunition. On Monday, the 30-year-old was sentenced in Sydney's Downey Centre local court to the 12-month jail term, of which 4 months will be served in full-time custody.
This person really is a clown because, like, what was the thinking here? Like, they're just not going to notice a gun in your luggage.
Well, they won't know what it looks like because this isn't America.
Yeah, they've never seen one before.
Also, I need
And
this
if they
to
ask,
protect
they'll
me.
just be like, whoops, my bad, anyway.
And it's, by the way, it was for protection against what? Our spiders and snakes?
Emus, they won the war, but no, they're not going to win the second one. Yeah. He was initially arrested at Sydney Airport in April 2023 after customs officers uncovered the 24-karat gold-plated pistol worth about $3,000 in her luggage. The court was previously told she had come to Australia to attend clown school and claimed she brought the gun for protection. Goodson had searched online whether she was allowed to bring the weapon into Australia, despite telling officers at the time she forgot she had it with her. When asked at the airport if she was carrying any prohibited items with her, Goodson claimed she was not, the court was told. What about the gun in your bag? She was asked by a customs officer. Goodson replied, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. A review of Goodson's phone revealed she had searched online, can I have a gun in my suitcase? And set a calendar entry with a note reminding her to put gun in suitcase.
Mr. Officer, please don't look at my phone. Also, another reminder to
Opposite day, that was a reminder to take gun out of suitcase.
Yeah, also a good reminder that if you are going to run into law enforcement or cross international borders or whatever, and you do want to be safe, turn off Face ID.
Yeah,
because
they like checking your phone.
That can be used to unlock your phone. Biometrics can be used, so there you go.
Goodson told police she was actually scared of shooting the gun and hoped simply producing it would be enough to deter potential threat. If that didn't do it, I would probably just pistol whip. Goodson was quoted as having said,
then why bring the ammunition?
Well, you know, just to have it. Yeah. When asked where she planned to store the gun while she was in Australia, she indicated under a vehicle's passenger seat, the court was told.
Like you do in America.
Yeah, you just, whatever, who cares? Yeah, this is American values really clashing with the values of the entire rest of the world here.
Yeah.
Like, what's the big deal? It's just a gun. Everyone has one.
Also,
I don't know how to use it, but you gotta have a gun.
Yeah, you're issued one in my country.
Yeah, because what if someone
Also,
else?
every other country in the world right now seeing the news about the healthcare thing reigniting the constant baffling. People are constantly confused when they learn about the American healthcare system.
Yeah. They're always like, oh, well, that sounds bad, but like, hey, at least you got this. And like, no, we don't have that either.
No, and we get taxed, relatively higher than you actually, and we get nothing in return.
Yeah, no, we do pay for healthcare with our taxes. It's just other people's healthcare, not for us. Mm-hmm. It's old people and poor people that jump through an insane amount of hoops, and also veterans. Yeah, they're allowed to get healthcare. They are, yes, but not me. I deserve nothing.
And also, their healthcare sucks too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a great country we have.
Is that every couple of years over in like Britain, they're like, the Conservative Party tries to privatize the NHS a little bit, and then they'll go and like interview just random blokes on the street, and they're like, yeah, I mean, American healthcare is supposed to be great, right? And they're like, no, it's not.
Yeah. The biggest thing during the Obama years when he was passing the Affordable Care Act was the claim that every other country on earth had death panels that would...
Your insurance company has death panels.
That's what they're already doing to you. But yeah, it was pitched as though like you stand before a jury who says...
The verdict is you will die.
Yeah. Meanwhile, American healthcare companies do that with paperwork, with the stroke of a pen.
Yeah.
Already. And actually worse than before.
Yeah. Deny your claim. They won't even do it. An AI that they designed so they wouldn't have to pay actual humans to look at your claim will do it, even if it has like a 90% failure rate. And it's on you to just keep the issue going, I guess.
We're going to use that same AI to identify the shooter in the healthcare assassination.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Anyways, that's it for today's episode. We'll be back with some tech news related stuff. And of course, we have other episodes for you to watch. But first, it is the last couple of days that you can get these.
I'm order these dolls. They're going quick.
Soon enough, they'll be gone forever. So yes, it's the last couple of days to buy these. We'll have a link in the description below. Please. All right, dolls. And make sure before you go to leave a like on the video. It really, really helps this channel grow. Please take a second and leave a like on the video. Also, if you want to talk about anything we spoke about today, I'm sure there's a lot of opinions out there. Please leave a comment in the comment section below. And of course, watch our most recent videos, which are popping up now. We got the Village People, who are not gay.
Not gay.
And the YMCA is not a gay anthem.
It's a straight anthem.
I'm beginning to think that they made him say that in anticipation that the Village People or some form of it is going to perform at the inauguration.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
Anyways, that video is popping up there now. Watch that. It's an episode of Weekly Weird News. We also have an episode of News Dump for you to watch, and we will be back soon. Bye-bye.
All mission
Bye-bye.
objectives met. Way to make me proud.
Do you think they enjoyed that as much as I did?
Let's now talk about a murder that happened in broad daylight in a New York City subway station. Daniel Penny choked and killed a homeless victim that was experiencing a mental health episode in front of a bunch of other people. And as of today, he has been acquitted.
Who has just been acquitted on that second charge, the criminally negligent homicide. At the same time, the father of Jordan Neely, the victim in this case, escorted out of the room after he had an outburst with an expletive inside that courtroom as the verdict was being read. Court officers stepping in to escort Mr. Zachary Carter out of the room. Andrew Zachary, that's his name, I should say. We are also hearing audible reaction directly in the park behind me. Protesters have been here all morning, and they are now starting to chant loudly in response to this verdict. Today,
CNN is so gross. Like, it's just, dude, in the lightest terms, it's just like a straightforward lynching. And CNN is like, here, remember that lynching that took place? The person who did it, he can now walk free and do it again if he wants to. Just a somber reminder of how things actually work. Are you asking them not to report on the facts of the situation, though? Really? Is that what you think I'm doing? Do you think replaying a lynching is actually important enough in this process? You think me saying, like, why are you even showing this footage again is actually, that's your takeaway from that? It's the same principle behind, like, the execution of George Floyd as well. The media consistently kept playing it over and over and over again. I think it's ridiculous. I'm not saying that they shouldn't report on the facts of the matter, but they don't have to be so graphic with the imagery.
He instructed the jury to go back into the deliberation room this morning and continue to deliberate. And now, just about an hour and a half after they started deliberating for the day, we are hearing back that verdict.
Law tip: New York's Defense of Others statute gives a person the authority to use physical force, and even in some other cases, deadly physical force to protect themselves and also to protect others from physical assault. There was ample testimony that witnesses feared imminent bodily harm. All this fear needs to be as reasonable under the circumstances, which it seemingly was. That's why he was acquitted. Yeah, I still think it's a terrifying precedent that it is setting, because ultimately, reasonable fear in this circumstance is like black person that is homeless, that is having a mental health episode, is now under consideration as an imminent threat, a reasonable fear, so they could just be assassinated. Great stuff. You being afraid of a dude who is like going through it and then watching someone choke them and kill them is on entirely different planets, okay? Entirely different planes of existence. Like, the conversation here isn't literally, oh no, let him like threaten someone or let him terrify someone, okay? That's not the point I'm making at all. A lot of people will look at that and go, well, Hassan, seems like you just, want people to smoke crack on the subway. I'm not one of those leftists, okay? I'm not saying like, oh, it's just a little bit of crack. Who gives it? Like, I understand why there is a frustration there, okay? By the way, I'm not saying that that's what Jordan Neely was doing. I'm simply stating that there is like a very common trope online of people who are like, oh, it's just a little bit of crack, let somebody do crack. So if the shooter put the CEOs in chokeholds, he would get away with it? No. While the CEO in that circumstance has a lot more kills under his belt, the reality of the matter is society does not view the CEO as someone engaging in an act of killing at all, because the murder in that circumstance is socialized social murder. The scary homeless person exhibiting a mental health episode, that is way scarier than a guy who was serialized and systematized the process of murder by way of, seeking out better profit margins year over year by simply killing people, by denying their coverage, by relegating them to medical bankruptcy, a life of medical debt. That's just the way we interpret it. The drug addict is seen as a not human, and therefore it is not murder, it's purification and cleansing. That is the unfortunate reality of the way that we interpret homeless people in this country. Homeless people automatically considered drug addicts, police. You know, whether they are or not doesn't matter. They're automatically seen as criminals, whether they are or not doesn't matter. This is the way that we interpret homeless people, as an aberration that must be excised violently. And in this circumstance, Daniel Penny did just that, and he was not punished for that. This means that our legal system will show, even in a place as blue as New York City, that yeah, if you kill a homeless person that is like very clearly exhibiting mental health crisis, there's no mechanism of apprehension there that is, you know, more meaningful, trying to engage in de-escalation, or trying to even examine why this person got to this point that they're in. Jordan Neely specifically got to this point that they're in. The attitude that we have is basically, no, you just gotta kill him. You gotta remove him. You gotta cleanse this area. I think it's ridiculous that this can be seen as like a reasonable level of force and a reasonable level of restraint that was demonstrated, and not just like Daniel Penny doesn't have to be this like white supremacist that was trying to get a confirmed kill, a legal kill by killing a black person. Okay, he could have still in that very moment thought, this guy is a threat to other people. I want to stop him from being a threat to other people. But what he did in that process led to the death of Jordan Neely. If society has laws and order and a criminal justice system, like, you reward certain behavior, you consider certain behavior to be permissible, and you punish certain behavior. And in this circumstance, in my opinion, this was behavior that was worthy of some semblance of punishment, so that people don't think that they can take matters in their own hands in a similar fashion.
They were also asked about their experiences with mental illness and homelessness. And what I think all of that encapsulates and really just paints a picture about the state of New York City and many of the...
Before people yell at me, I need you to understand something. I have a consistent principle on this, as do I on the healthcare CEO shooting. I don't believe that the solution to societal problems is by just popping healthcare CEOs, okay? I believe that that is an important anger and resentment that people feel that must be acknowledged in this circumstance. And the same goes for this execution as well. What Daniel Penny did was seen as appropriate by many people. That is terrifying. That is an important indicator. It is a terrifying indicator that people have given up on any semblance of structural solutions to this issue. At least with the health insurance CEO, we know that there is no legislative outlook that even resembles a path towards change. Like, there is neither party that actually presents any sort of change whatsoever. With this circumstance, people's solutions are not to re-examine the very same structural hurdles that place them significantly closer to being Jordan Neely than an Elon Musk. Because after all, every single person in this chat, myself included, regardless of my financial success, are far closer to being homeless than we are to being Elon Musk. Ironically enough, one bad medical situation and you will find yourself on the streets. And the reality of the matter is, although that is the truth, many people do not see it that way. And they simply look at homeless people and go, oh, gross. Like, I already have all these societal pressures that I have to deal with. And now there's a weird person that smells bad, that is like around me and being a nuisance and maybe even behaving in a...
Like, this is AI, right? Skin. It's just like all this is. Because none of it like has like a real theme. It's just like vaguely themed. And what is this? And what's going on with the gun? Why does the gun keep changing every couple seconds? Oh, it's just so weird. And yeah, this just like, this weirds me out. Like, they asked an AI, just come up with something. Slap a name on it that's vaguely. Here's the only non-AI created. This is a real person. Who is the money? Zabowski, sorry, Lebowski. Thank you. That dude was in The Big Lebowski. Fuck. Fucking ledge. He's also in Fargo, the movie, not the TV show. Fucking ledge.
in a way that is scary. So how will that person be dealt with? Let us not look at the ways in which Jordan Neely's personal journey led him to be permanently in the crosshairs of the criminal justice system, in and out of jail over and over again, no future prospects whatsoever, you know, and people still apply blanket statements like this. Look, is that the criminal with a record of 40 plus crimes? Do you know what those crimes were, brother? You know, there's like, they pad the stats, right? Especially if you're poor. The point I'm trying to make is that you are closer to being him than you are to even, you know, being the CEO of United Healthcare, okay? His crime primarily is being poor. His crime is primarily being homeless. His crime is primarily being a victim of circumstance. His crimes are sleeping where he's not supposed to, fare evasion, like that, loitering. That's what's so frustrating. And you go, oh, well, he was threatening women and children with death. He was a mentally ill homeless person, dude. He was very obviously exhibiting a mental health episode. I don't even know the full details of or the veracity of the statement. But even if that is the case, you have to understand that, like, you can try to apprehend a person like this. You can try to talk down a person like this. Obviously, it shouldn't even get to that point. That person should not be, you know, running around at the subway station, like, obviously going through this mental health episode. The issue is there's two ways to fix this problem. You either randomly tasked with the goal of going out and just executing people like Jordan Neely in the crowded subway cars. You either do that and you basically democratize this process and everyone takes matters in their own hands, or you recognize that these people are victims of circumstance and try to solve it and try to also ensure that there aren't more new homeless people being created every single day because they get priced out of the housing market. If you live in a big city, and I do, you have been in a situation where you have been fearful of your safety in the presence of a homeless person, and no, that doesn't mean you saw a homeless guy and got scared. That means, like, a homeless person has threatened you, okay? It happens literally every day. It has happened to me on numerous occasions. Now, of course, I'm a big dude. I'm a guy. I'm 6'4", jacked. So the threat does not actually carry the same weight as, like, if you are a tinier person or you have a hard time defending yourself. Like, I understand that. I understand the very real fear that someone exhibit in that moment. And my solution in that moment isn't even to say, like, well, analyze the conditions and how this person got there. I'm not expecting you to do that. But even if there are methods of, you know, restraint or methods of talking someone down, talking to them as a human being and trying to de-escalate, those are the methods that should be applied. That's what I think. And not only do I expect that from police, I expect that.
I mean, what I don't get, honestly, is like, why murder a homeless person when there's all these CEOs walking around? You know? Way more dangerous.
From random people as well if push comes to shove. It is kind of funny that people come to me and they're like, well, he's threatening death. What should people do? I don't know, man. As someone who, I promise you, receives way more death threats, credible death threats, than you do on a daily basis, you do what I do, okay? You live your goddamn life. Shut the f up. This doesn't mean it's appropriate, okay?
And as a result of representing that immediate threat of death or serious physical injury, that restraining him in the way that he did was reasonable and appropriate. And so that was the one issue. I think the second issue was the dealing with the causation. What does causation mean? It means that the prosecution had to establish that he caused, that is the defendant in this case, Mr. Perry, the death of Jordan Neely. And there was really dispute on the medical evidence. On the one hand, you had the prosecutor's medical examiner saying, in fact, it was the chokehold that caused it. On the other hand, you had the defense saying a number of things. Number one, that there wasn't sufficient pressure applied such that it could be the chokehold. Number two, that schizophrenia diagnosis, that the issue with the synthetic marijuana, etc., caused it. So I think there were plenty of issues for the jury to conclude that just beyond a reasonable doubt, either A, it was self-defense, and B, that he wasn't the cause. So those were two good reasons as to why they could have quit, and that's exactly what they did.
I don't understand, because, like, didn't he choke him for 5 minutes straight? And he died. Like, how come every time a black person gets choked to death, the media's like, well, you know, there was drugs in his system? Like, the people do drugs all the time. What are we?
Yeah, I've never seen a drug kill someone of strangulation.
Talking about. The point is, if this was a rich person, if this was a white person, if this was a white rich person who had smoked synthetic marijuana and maybe had unexamined or undiagnosed schizophrenia, would society's approach to the subject matter be different? It was a white man who was wealthy, dressed nice, having a mental health episode on a crowded subway station, and somebody
I've seen that shit too.
Let's say a black man choked him to death. I don't believe that people would approach the situation in the same way. I think that he would get the book thrown at him. My point is, I think personally that the standard for killing
I would like to see that happen just to see if he would.
Should be unimaginably high for someone who is of a police background, and even higher for like the random citizen. I mean, just unimaginably high for both. The point is, you can't let people get away with just like murking people, okay? You are setting a very dangerous precedent. You're like, no, it's open season. And the worst part about this is like deterrence, right? If your expectation is like, well, this creates a deterrence for people to act out on the subway stations, you think the motherfucker that's going through a mental health episode gives a about the legal precedent set forth by Daniel Penny?
Yeah, they're not capable of at the
he's
moment.
gonna do it regardless. Like, that's not stopping people, you know what I mean? This is simply just giving you a little bit of happiness in this moment because you're like, oh, these criminal nuisances that are consistently around me on my daily commute will now be murdered sometimes, and the murderers will be able to get away with it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's complete dog shit. Oh, excuse me. Wow. Me wow.
Got their marksman. Let's push.
Wow.
Difficult to. Hi. In this video, I'm going to be going over and critiquing the Wikipedia page for the Holodomor genocide question. In doing so, I'll talk about Wikipedia's problems, which will hopefully inspire viewers to look at it a bit more critically. Something that I think is important because many of us use it constantly, myself included. We'll also be going over the historical research on the Holodomor and the 1932 to 1933 Soviet famine in detail, and especially the question of whether or not the famine was intentionally planned and engineered to genocide Ukrainians. A pretty commonly held belief that you might have heard of before, and something that I've wanted to address here on my channel for a while now. Now let's get right down to it. Wikipedia is, according to its official tagline, the free encyclopedia that anyone can edit. In theory, that's a great idea, an attempt to try and aggregate the sum of human knowledge in a very collaborative and inclusive way. And it does usually work okay. It's reasonable at giving an introductory outline on many topics, especially ones that aren't particularly controversial, and it's mostly reliable if you just want to look up some basic facts. Things like, what is a dog? Or what is a snake? Or who was the president of the USA in 2017? Where things start to get a bit complicated is when we go beyond simple, uncontroversial information and into the whys and hows of an issue. For example, why was Donald Trump the president of the USA in 2017 is an infinitely more complicated and subjective question than just who was the president in 2017. There are many different arguments as to how he got elected, some better or more convincing than others. So in an article that addresses that question, how do we decide which of them are closer to the truth or which to include and which not to? Wikipedia's attempt to tackle this problem is its stated policy of neutrality. The idea is that when venturing beyond the realm of simple, uncontroversial facts, the article should mostly try to avoid forming its own conclusions. Rather, it should try to present the arguments and counter-arguments of both sides and allow the reader to make their own assessment. In practice, however, it rarely actually works out that way, because Wikipedia is a product of both its rules and the opinions and agendas of its editors, moderators, and administrators. Its rules dictate that articles must be based on reliable sources, and these reliable sources must be published by a reputable party. That alone already injects a ton of bias into the encyclopedia, as what's considered reliable and reputable in the first place is not only subjective, but can be very prone to manipulation. News outlets of record are considered shoe-ins as reputable, reliable sources on Wikipedia. It's incredibly common for entire articles to be based on their conclusions alone, which are taken as simple proven fact by virtue of the fact that they said so. Yet that these outlets have a particular editorial line they tend to adhere to that dictates what they choose to report on in the first place, how they report on it, and even the purported facts that they present is given little to no consideration, nor is the fact that said editorial line also always happens to conform with the interests of their impossibly rich owners. These media organizations, with their hegemonic control over the flow of supposedly reputable information, are also able to leverage this control to turn themselves into the arbiters of what's even considered to be reliable and reputable in the first place. This manifests on Wikipedia too. When the community comes together to decide on whether a source is reliable or not, the simple fact that other so-called reliable sources consider it reliable themselves is given huge weight, such as in this discussion about the reliability of an Australian military think tank, which was nearly voted as being reliable just on the basis that other Western media outlets like to cite it. So it's a self-perpetuating circle of bias. Wikipedia rarely assesses individual sources on their own merit. Rather, they're far more often accepted or rejected based purely on the perceived reputability of their host publication. By extension, essentially just giving the editors of these so-called reputable outlets editorial control over Wikipedia itself. To make matters worse, on Wikipedia, the ultimate decision on the reliability and reputability of a source is made via community votes. And the people who comprise said community come from societies where the hegemonic media also happens to dictate public opinion. So of course that vote is just going to reaffirm exactly that. So Wikipedia's baseline has a strong tendency to reflect an amalgamation of the editorial lines of the mainstream Western sources that the community has, in a very inevitable, self-fulfilling way, accepted as reliable. That doesn't mean that it's always or even mostly wrong, just that the articles can be and often are directed more towards spreading certain political narratives than the truth. It's not just that the sources themselves are biased, however. Every individual also has biases, and regardless of how much you try to regulate them, they're always going to manifest in some way. This means that the biases of members of its community are aggregated into a final product that, rather than being neutral, tends to at the very least push the reader towards a certain conclusion. And the biases of these community members, who are overwhelmingly English speakers from Western countries, are also influenced by the societies in which they live and the flow of information within them for all the regions that I just went over. This has manifested itself most clearly in the community consensus to heavily limit the citation of non-Western
Good moves.
In contrast, US state media outlets, which are at the very least just as unreliable, such as Radio Free Asia, were voted by the community to be reliable sources, despite the fact they frequently make extraordinary and completely unverifiable claims about the USA's geopolitical rivals without any evidence beyond someone we spoke to who we swear definitely exists told us this, trust us, stories which are then, of course, never corroborated by any other source ever. For comparison, Wikipedia's editors near unanimously voted to ban the Global Times, a Chinese state media outlet, from being cited, with the stated reason being the Global Times publishes false or fabricated information, conspiracy theories, and propaganda promoting the Chinese government. Now, I actually agree with that assessment completely, but every single one of those reasons also applies equally to Radio Free Asia. They publish false and fabricated information, including conspiracy theories and propaganda promoting the US government. Yet they're accepted as a reliable source, literally the complete opposite of Wikipedia's assessment of the Global Times. That's just one example of how the community's biases often take precedence over Wikipedia's ostensibly espoused rules and guidelines. Since Wikipedia is run by its users and its users as a collective are biased, their consensus reflects that bias. So so Wikipedia inevitably ends up reflecting it too. This results in Wikipedia, on average, having a pronounced bias in favor of the status quo in Western countries, and of whatever positions are most convenient for said status quo. For this reason, it's an encyclopedia that, while very useful and undoubtedly an amazing human achievement purely due to its expansiveness, still often directs the reader more towards believing in certain politically charged narratives, rather than whatever's actually closest to the truth. This doesn't necessarily mean it always champions the pro-Western position, because sometimes the opposite position is kind of undeniable. Rather that it will, on average, be slanted towards it, often subtly. Hence, why it should always be read very critically and never considered as anything more than just a starting point on any remotely controversial topic. And you know what's a very controversial topic?
They've taken the lead.
Enter the Wikipedia page for the Holodomor genocide question. What is that, you may ask? According to the article itself, this article is about the question of whether the Holodomor constituted a genocide. Convenient. Now, you might not know what the Holodomor is, so let's consult Wikipedia on the matter. It states that it was a famine in Soviet Ukraine from 1932 to 1933 that killed millions of Ukrainians, and that it was a part of the wider Soviet famine of 1932 to 1933. That's a decent enough short summary. That's an example of an acceptable citing of Wikipedia, a pretty uncontroversial two-sentence description of something that only total crackpots would deny. Though what immediately follows that part is quite biased. A number of unsourced claims that are clearly directed at pushing the reader towards a certain conclusion, so you always got to be careful and stick to the dry, uncontroversial bits. We're going to be going into much more detail regarding the Holodomor and the broader Soviet famine of 1932 to 33 throughout this video, so I'm going to leave it at that for now to avoid repeating myself. Now, back to the article on the Holodomor genocide question. At first glance, it seems like a decent, relatively unbiased article that presents all viewpoints equally. Right away in the intro, it plays into this idea of balance by citing one guy who says that the academic consensus is that it was a genocide, then another who says the academic consensus is that it actually wasn't, and then another two sources who say that the issue is actually still hotly debated and that there's not actually any consensus at all. Very confusing, but still, all three stances seem to be given equal prominence, just as you'd expect considering Wikipedia's policy of neutrality. However, things get very iffy from there. The intro then goes on to cite the fact that 15 countries recognize the Holodomor as genocide. I don't know why this is even repeated here. The stances of governments on matters like these have far more to do with whatever's most politically convenient for them than with them honestly assessing the historical evidence, so they're not exactly reliable sources. For a particularly illustrative example of this, in 2003 and 2008, the Australian Parliament formally passed a resolution recognizing the Holodomor as genocide. Yet it's also never actually formally acknowledged its own genocide of Aboriginal people, which there is an overwhelming scholarly consensus supporting. And Australia even rejected the results of a report which the government itself commissioned, which also came to the same conclusion, that the Australian state was guilty of genocide. In fact, Australia even refused to integrate the crime of genocide into Australian law until 2002, specifically to ensure that the state couldn't be taken to court for its genocide of Indigenous peoples. And the only reason that they finally implemented it was to ensure that the International Criminal Court could not try Australians for the crime, and they made sure to include a provision that the law was not retroactive, all because they knew that otherwise they would be prosecuted for their genocide of Indigenous people. So whether something is a genocide is not decided by a parliamentary vote or an executive order from any number of governments, but rather by an exhaustive assessment assessment of the evidence on the matter, and none of these recognitions were based on anything resembling such an assessment. They happened for purely political reasons, including what historian Olga Andruski called a vigorous international campaign initiated by the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs to have the United Nations, the Council of Europe, and other governments recognize the Ukrainian famine of 1932-33 as a deliberate act of genocide against the Ukrainian people. So these are clearly politically motivated recognitions, and they're wholly irrelevant to the question that the article poses, yet are included anyway because they help to instill in the reader the conclusion that the Wikipedia community would like to push. And it gets worse in the main subject of this video, which is the actual body of the article, which presents opinions from both sides of the argument in more detail. What I'm going to be showing here is that Wikipedia editors collectively, whether they actually consciously intended to do so or not, scrape the bottom of the barrel to bolster the case for the feminist genocide position over the not genocide one. Anyone can edit Wikipedia, so it might have changed by the time you're watching this. But as of March and April 2022, this is still the case. They present much lower quality claims on the matter that sometimes aren't even backed up or argued for at all, as if they were equal to the latest historical scholarship, specifically dealing with this exact question in detail, which mostly concludes that the famine was actually not a genocide. And they sometimes even broke Wikipedia's rules and guidelines in the process of doing so. This is quite an old and well-refined Wikipedia article. It's gone through a ton of revisions and a lot of community discussion around improving it. Yet it still ended up in this state, and there's not been any real objections raised about these problems by the Wikipedia community, which certainly backs up what I said about their biases. This type of subtle manipulation is very common throughout Wikipedia, and really to how public opinion is dictated in general, beyond Wikipedia. It's not that some shady cabal of Wikipedia editors have gotten together to lie to you about the Holodomor, though weird things like that do sometimes happen on Wikipedia. Rather, these editors and their habits merely reflect the wider forces that dictate public opinion in their societies. So in a case like this one, where the consensus among historians actually specialize in this topic, which Wikipedia articles about history are meant to be based on, doesn't fit with what most editors would like to be true, they will often collectively manipulate the article to make it as favorable to their preferred version of the truth as they can reasonably get away with. This can be difficult to spot if you're not reading very carefully or aren't already well versed in the topic. It's an excellent example of why you should be very, very critical when reading Wikipedia on anything that's even remotely politically contested, and ensure that you don't let it dictate your own beliefs, or just actually don't read it at all in those cases. That's really ideal. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to present one of the sources that the Wikipedia article cites to support the pro-genocide side, and by pro-genocide I mean they think it was a genocide, not that they actually are pro-genocide literally, okay? And then do the same with one of its sources from the not-genocide camp. And we'll keep going until there's none left. Then I'll form a conclusion and give my own hot takes on the matter. It's going to be very, very juicy, so make sure you watch until the end. Let's get right into it with the first source from the feminist genocide section. It cites an article by Simon Payaslian, a historian specialized in Armenian history, called 20th Century Genocides, published on the Oxford Bibliography's online website. The part of the page which the wiki article cites is this sentence: a consensus has formed among scholars that genocides in the 20th century encompass, although were not limited to, the following cases: the Herero genocide, the Armenian genocide, the Holodomor in the former Soviet Ukraine, the Jewish Holocaust, Bangladesh in 1971, Cambodia in 1975 to 1979, East Timor in 1975 to 1999, Bosnia in 1991 to 1995, and Rwanda in 1994. In the work itself, this passage provides no citation for this, and this is the only time in the entire article where the author even mentions the Holodomor. I also checked out his other works, and he's never actually written about it specifically. Aside from in this article, he's only ever mentioned it once in passing in an article that was actually about the Armenian genocide. So he's never actually directly addressed the question of whether and why the Holodomor was a genocide himself, nor has he written anything about the purported scholarly consensus on the matter that he mentions here. Funnily enough, he's pretty much only ever actually mentioned in relation to the Holodomor in references to this very Wikipedia article, which for some reason chose to cite him as its first source. Oxford Bibliographies Online is an actual peer-reviewed source, and the historian being cited is an actual historian, though he's clearly not one who has much expertise relevant to this topic and question specifically. Content-wise, however, this source is just totally inadequate and has nothing going for it that is at all really relevant to the Holodomor genocide question, aside from the guy basically saying, yep, it was a genocide, and not explaining anything. Just kind of mentioning it in passing. So the very first source presented here is one that doesn't actually directly address the question at hand at all. It rather just makes an unsourced statement, which is then cited in the Wikipedia article. This goes against Wikipedia's own guidelines on reliable sourcing, which state that information in an article must be verifiable in the references cited. In general, article statements should not rely on unclear or inconsistent passages or on passing comments. The citing of Payaslian here is both unverifiable, as his article provides no source for the claim, and it relies on citing a passing comment. The Holodomor just mentioned one time among a bunch of other events, with nothing specific said about it at all. So why is it in the article anyway then? Because the consensus-making mechanisms of Wikipedia dictated that it should be. Those involved are very willing to stretch the bounds of what's acceptable to include if it suits their preferred conclusion. This article has gone through countless revisions and audits, and many sources have been purged from it after being branded unsuitable by community consensus, most of which were against the genocide conclusion. Yet this one still remains. The fact that this article was published by someone who is still at least a real scholar in a real peer-reviewed source helps with all of this. It lends it this superficial aura of authority that the actual substance of the source itself and the rest of the scholar's work fails to back up, which is easy to get away with in a Wikipedia article because very few readers will actually check the sources. And even if someone did check the source and then also decided to put in the time and effort to challenge its inclusion in this article, there's very little chance that they could come out on top against the biases of this community that made this article what it is in the first place. So let's move on to the sources presented that conclude that the Holodomor was not a genocide. The first thing that pops out for me here is that while the Payaslian article is cited both in the Wikipedia page's intro paragraph and used to spearhead the Feminist genocide section, the following article that was cited in the aforementioned intro that states the exact opposite, that the consensus is that it was not actually a genocide, isn't actually included in the body of the article itself. This article by historian J. Arch Getty is at least of equal quality as a source as Payaslian's article, and that's being very generous to the latter. Getty is a specialist on the Soviet Union who has specifically, albeit in a limited capacity, written peer-reviewed work on the Holodomor specifically that directly addresses the question of whether or not it was a genocide. He's also engaged in the public debate surrounding this since the 80s. It makes no sense for Payaslian, who's never actually talked about the topic beyond just a couple of fleeting mentions, to be cited both in the intro and the body, yet for Getty not to be, unless, of course, the article was trying to lead the reader towards a certain conclusion. Anyway, so the first source that they do include in the feminist crime but not genocide section is an article by the economic historian Michael Ellman, a specialist in the Soviet economy. Ellman's article, written in 2007, is 31 pages long and specifically deals with the question of whether the famine was genocide or not, directly addressing the relevant scholarship. This is a quality, modern scholarly analysis that's very much worthy of being included here. To sum up his stance, he says that the famine was caused by Stalin and his government's policy of forced collectivization of agriculture, which they were genuinely optimistic about when planning and initiating, yet which was disastrous in practice. Since the most common definition of genocide, using the UN definition, requires specific intent, he agrees with some other authors that bad policy that didn't turn out the way those implementing it had hoped cannot be considered genocidal by this common definition. He goes on to state that while by his assessment, Stalin's actions once the famine was underway, such as instituting a policy to turn back starving peasants fleeing the affected areas, do constitute crimes against humanity, there is nonetheless just not any evidence fitting of the UN definition of genocide for the same reason that we just went over. Ellman, however, does believe that there is evidence that the Soviet leadership considered some of the famine's victims to have deserved their fate. However, he says that these victims were denounced not based on their nationality or ethnicity, but rather on perceptions of them being class enemies and idlers. Ellman believes that those who were considered to be parts of those groups were denied relief and possibly even directly killed, but said groups don't fall under any of the categories covered by the Genocide Convention, and they were definitely not targeted specifically for being Ukrainian, meaning that these mass killings cannot be considered genocide by the common definition that most of you will understand as genocide. He additionally notes that Russians, Ukrainians, and Kazakhs were all affected greatly by the famine, which extended far beyond just Ukraine itself. So while by his assessment, many of the famine deaths can be attributed to Stalin's callous response and his poor agricultural policies, he would still support a verdict of not guilty, or possibly the Scottish verdict of not proven, for the crime of genocide specifically. Ellman does, however, go on to state that under a broader definition of genocide, which is used by many academics who study genocide, the famine might indeed be considered genocide. Under this definition, a more specific intent is not required. Rather, the offender is culpable because he knew or should have known that the act would destroy, in whole or in part, a group. So it wouldn't matter whether or not there's evidence that the Soviet government wanted to target Ukrainians. What matters is simply that they took actions that they should have or did know would result in the deaths of Ukrainians or fail to save them from death. However, as Ellman goes on to note, this has much wider implications beyond just the USSR. The Holodomor, the purported genocidal mass starvation of Ukrainians, would not actually be exceptional at all. In fact, this would mean that Stalin also committed genocide against Kazakhs and even Russians, since he should have known that his policies would result in their deaths, which diminishes the idea further that he was targeting Ukrainians. He also notes that, under this wider definition, pretty much every Western country, including those who recognize the Holodomor as a genocide, are themselves